you think 3 quarterbacks go in the first 5 picks? I think no. I
No.
think the 3 quarterbacks go in the first 7 picks.
Yeah, I'll say even maybe 10. Yeah, yeah. It'll be Young, right? Levis.
Levis,
Then you'll probably see a CP Stroud.
yeah, C.J. Stroud, Levis, and Young. The first 7 picks, I think, yeah, 3 quarterbacks go, and maybe you see a team like the Panthers, who, if they miss out, go for an Anthony Richardson. You could add 4 in the top 10, something like
It
that.
could, yeah,
It'd be
yeah,
very
yeah. That could
interesting,
happen.
but this is the NFL draft. All sorts of crazy stuff can happen. If C.J. Stroud falls to 6, would you take him? Hashtag FGB Devin Davis. I would trade the pick.
Yeah,
I would try to get a haul. That's what I would do. I, I look. If you're doing BPA and if he's BPA, obviously you do that. But I would try to honestly trade the pick. I want to get more
yeah,
assets. What would you do if C.J. Stroud fell?
yeah. There's a couple options there, man. It all depends who's on the board. Besides CJ Stroud, if there's a guy like someone like if a Jalen Carter or somehow slipped to 6, I'd be really be like, oh man, we need to trade this pick. We need to trade this pick, or because a team like Carolina, I think would come a calling at 9 to go up to 6 to get a guy like CJ Stroud. I think they would give up a haul to go get that man and solidify their quarterback position. I know everybody doesn't like OSU quarterbacks, but this guy is a good quarterback. He could be the guy that changes that. But I would definitely try to trade out of it, or just all depends who's there. But CJ Stroud is a good football player, man. A lot of people throw a lot of shade at him, man, but that kid can wing it. That kid can wing it,
He's
man. But
QB
OSU
two.
quarterbacks,
Young
they
one,
just
him
fail.
two.
It's just weird. It's just weird. But I would try to trade out of there.
Night Owl 1978 says, Mailbag, who is the player not in the first round that you just absolutely want the Lions to draft? My guy is Jack Campbell in round 2. I love Jack Campbell. I would absolutely love to have him on this football team. I think
Yeah.
he'd be the perfect linebacker for the Lions. You kind of stole the thunder out of me here. But if Trenton Simpson fell to the second round, that's how I would love to get Trenton Simpson. Who do you
Yeah.
got?
I like Drew Sanders, too. I like the kid out of Arkansas. I like that linebacker, big kid that's 6'5", 235. So that's another guy that I would really like. I just don't know what Brad Holmes, man, he doesn't value top linebackers, man, high. So I don't know what he would do. I don't think he would go after a linebacker that high, but a guy I really like is Drew Sanders, man.
Paul, just talking to Drew Sanders, says, do the Lions have a realistic chance at Drew
Mm.
Sanders in the second round? Would you like him on the Lions? Yeah, I think you do have a
Love
realistic
him.
chance of getting Drew Sanders on this football team. I think it's going to be interesting how the linebacker draft plays out. If Trenton Simpson goes earlier than expected, it may push a player like Drew Sanders is to stay in the first round. If he's drafted a little bit less, maybe he pushes him later in the second round. But you got Drew Sanders, you got Trenton Simpson, you got Jack Campbell, you got Noah Sewell. There is a ton of linebackers all in that general area. So we'll see how it works, but I think there is a realistic possibility that he would be available in the second round. What do you think about Drew Sanders? You think he'd be available in the second round?
I think he's going to be a guy that's gonna fall to at least the second round for sure, man. I think he's a really good linebacker. I like him a lot, and if he's there, I would kind of hope the Lions will pull the trigger. It just all depends what happens, who's going to be available as well. But Drew Sanders is one of my top linebackers in this draft for sure. I love Trenton Simpson too, but I just don't think he's going to slip to the second round.
I don't
That
think he
guy,
will
that
either.
kid's gonna be special, man. He's the jack of all trades, man. That guy
He's
can
an
do
18 to
a lot of stuff.
25
He's
pick
almost
to
like
me.
what's that?
He's an 18 to 25 pick to me.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I think too, man. So, think Isaiah Simmons, but better. I think he's just they got they got those players over there at Clemson that can play every position. It's so weird. And Trenton Simpson, I think, is going to be a guy that's going to be special on an NFL team. I like him a lot.
JT's massive purpose. Who do you guys like in the second round? A linebacker and offensive guard. I think it's a perfectly fine position to go there. I want a linebacker in the first 2 rounds So that is just something I want. I think I could be a little more flexible at guard. I think you could wait till round 3. There'll still be some good guards there if you don't go Osiris Torrance at 18. At that point, I'm not forcing a position. I want to go BPA. I want to make sure the second round's not jacked. How many years have we screwed up the second round? How
Too many
many?
times, right?
Too many times. We can't do that here. And if that if linebacker is there, do it. But even if it's a position I may not want, if it's the BPA, do it, because I don't want a situation where you're drafting for need and then you end up like what we've been doing the last 20 years in the second round. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
the curse, but it's the second round. It's a big FU to the Lions.
It's so bizarre. It's one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen, man. Just we can't get that second round pick down. You know, hopefully that can come full circle and that can just go away one day. But yeah, there's guys that we talked about, Drew Sanders, Noah Sewell, those type of guys. Simpson, he won't fall in the second, but there's some guys there, Campbell. So and then at guard you got Schmitz, man, Andrew Voorhees out of USC.
I like
Those guys can
Voorhees.
slip to the second round if they really. We don't know what Brad Holmes's draft board looks like, right? So, but we're naming some guys that could possibly go in that second round, and a John Michael Schmitz and an Andrew Voorhees at guard could really be a nice get if you don't get a Torrance.
Salem Bad Moon Rising. Hey, you Mike, holler at folks to get in on the app. My comments get lonely. Have you seen Incum yet? Defensive line from Central Michigan. I actually had COVID, and I did absolutely nothing this past week except for lay down and sleep, so I haven't got to it. Have you seen any of this young man's film? No? You were gone
I
at
haven't
Vegas.
seen Incoom yet either. I gotta take it. I got to take a gander at this kid. I
Yep.
haven't looked at him. I haven't really heard of him yet either, man. I'll tell you the truth.
What are your expectations for Josh Paschal in his second year? I expect him to be a significant part of the rotation on the interior and on the outside of the defensive line. I expect him to be in there quite a bit. That's what I want to see, him being used. I'm not going to say, like, well, he's got to get this amount of sacks or this amount of stops or tackles. I just want to see him used. That is my expectations for Paschal. What do you got, Mark?
Yeah, we just talked about this. Second round picks. Pascal's one of them. He had kind of an up and down year. He splashed in a couple games. I expect him. I expect him to win a starting gig, though. You're a second round pick. You're a high pick. I expect you to do something. I'm like you said, though, Mike. I'm not gonna tell you how many tackles I think he should have, how many sacks he should get, but he should be a guy that I think should win a starting gig if they don't go D line in the first round. That's going to push him, but he's a guy, second year, do something, man. So I expect him to make some plays. Let's get this curse of the second year guy out of this city.
Got my man Nine Drinks here. Says hashtag mail sack. What are your thoughts on Jahmyr Gibbs in this second round? I think that's where he's going to go, is the second round. If you do draft Gibbs, to me it spells the end of DeAndre Swift in Detroit after this year. Because he is more, he's not that big pound every down back. He's that big flash guy, kind of what DeAndre Swift is. Will I be upset if they go running back in the second round? No, because it is a need. Right now, you got DeAndre Swift on the roster. We don't know the future of him. I don't think it's in Detroit after this year. I personally don't. He's not proven to be a player that you can consistently rely on. Jamal Williams is a free agent. You got Craig Reynolds, who barely played last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you
He's a
got
free
for
agent
running
too.
back. So if they're to draft one,
Yep.
I'm not going to be upset. Personally, I'd like to go the bigger back, the more powerful back, and every down running back. I think we've done a lot of these utility speedsters. It just hasn't worked. But would I be upset? No, because I understand what they're trying to do. What would you think about
Yeah.
getting Gibbs?
I like Gibbs, but like again, he's not the biggest of backs. He's like 5'11", 200 pounds. He does a lot of good things out for a football team. He's pretty good at Alabama. He can play a lot of special teams. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He does some nice things. Second round, I think, might be I think it might be a little bit too high for my personal preference because I don't think he's a workhorse guy. He's a guy that's
Yeah,
going to come in and rotate, but
rotate.
he's a good back. He's a good back, but I just don't like him in the second. But I think he's probably going to get drafted in the second. I mean, he might fall though. He might slip a little bit because just the way teams value running backs these days in the NFL, they don't value them high anymore. So he could be a guy that could maybe slip, but he is a good football player. But I'm not really feeling him in the second round.
Peter Van Loerhoven. Mommy, look at the current offensive line spots. We don't have a starting right guard, and Evan Brown is gone, which also means we have no backup center either. What's your answer? Well, first off, Big V is currently on the roster. If they were to release him, I do think they're going to draft guard high. So it'd be the NFL draft there. Does it make sense to really go in free agency to get a starting guard? Because if you release Big V, you're going to save $6.5 million, and then what you're going to sign a guy for $9 to $10 million. It doesn't really make any sense. You might as well just keep him. But if you release him, you just go ahead and draft a replacement. You can find good guards in the first 3 rounds. Remember, you look at Larry Warford, 3rd round pick. Jonah Jackson, 3rd round pick. I mean, you can find good guards in the 3rd round. But like I said, I've been talking here. Osiris Torrance is growing on me big time. And if he's available at 18, I may pick him. I just may do it. And I agree with you, Evan Brown. He is extremely valuable. I love Evan Brown. He's a great backup play, both left, right guard, but primarily at center. He's a great piece. I'd love to bring him back. I just think he may want to get paid more and have a starting opportunity somewhere else. If that's the case, I think you're gonna have to sign maybe a guard in free agency, a universal one for a backup depth role. I think that is a problem, but I agree with you there that if you let Big V walk, you're going to be getting a guard in the first 3 rounds. There's absolutely no doubt about it. What do you think, Mark?
I almost feel the same way. Like like you said, we do have Big V on the roster still, so we do have a starting right guard. We just don't know how he is health wise. Evan Brown's going to be looking for money. I think they've already gave him the future money of he's on pace to make $10 million or something like that right now. So does Brad Holmes want to pay that type of money for a backup guy? But like we talk about here, man, he's a guy that's available. He plays 3 positions, left guard, center, and right guard. Type of guy that he's a little bit costly of a backup, but he's a guy that could get money from Brad Holmes, man, because he's very valuable. He's super valuable, man. And a lot of teams will be going after him, though. But like Mike said, too, he could be a guy that might want to get maybe $12 to $15 million and become a starter at guard or even center. Or even center. So, but, I love Torrance, too, as well. I think if he's available at 18, I think it's a guy they seriously need to look at. And then you go find your backup center somewhere in the draft, or you bring in a guy through free agency that can be, cheap, but a pretty good backup center who could play a couple games if Ragnow happens to go down. Let's hope he doesn't. But the good thing about O-linemen is that you can look deep into drafts, man, with O-linemen, because you can get good ones in the 4th, 5th round. So I'm not too worried about what Brad Holmes is going to do here, but I wouldn't be shocked if they paid Evan Brown a little bit of extra money to come back. But, time will tell.
Mark, who's our offensive line coach again? He's really good at his job.
Pretty good, man. Hank Fraley.
Yeah, Fraley.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about
it.
it. I think we got a masterminded coach. When you can make Dan Skipper do decent in a game at guard when he's 6'8", he's a lumberjack. I think the Lions understand that they're not. And if you look at the trenches, they don't play around in the trenches. They just don't. So I don't think they're going to be messing around there. I wouldn't worry about the offensive line. But, yeah, we'll find out here in a couple weeks. If Big V's released, I'm going to tell you right now, we're drafting a guard in the first 3 rounds. It will be on every single mock draft that I have. There will be a guard drafted the first 3 rounds.
Perfect.